Okay, so why did we do that just now? Why did we film ourselves singing and dancing to music? Um, well, today has been a generally freeing day. Um, the morning started with James fronting, who is has always been one of the more free, uh, enlightened, so to speak. I don't know why I feel the need to say so to speak. I think I just think the word enlightened is corny and overused, which it is. But um, members of the system. And James went on an errand run, going to Aldi's um, via riding on the bus, which is a very fun thing to do. Riding on the bus uh, is very fun, and you get to meet a lot of cool people, um, and just random people who live in your area. And the bus was pretty packed this morning. Um, this is James talking now. The bus was pretty packed this morning. Um, there were on the way there. There were two older ladies who sat across from us. Um, one of which, or both of which, I asked if I could draw, because I had brought our sketchbook and was looking to draw some people on the bus because that's a fun thing to do, and was hoping to start some conversation with them. Um, the first old lady I asked said, "Sorry, I'm busy right now," when I asked if I could draw her. And I was like, I mean, that first of all, you're riding on the bus. You're not busy. You're just sitting there. Like she was just sitting there. Um, and second of all, you don't need to be involved for me to draw you. But that's okay. I asked the second old lady, and they said something that I couldn't hear, or I think they didn't hear me correctly. And I didn't want to I had already tried to get the first old lady's attention a lot of times, and just tried to like just said like, "Hey, excuse me," over and over again, and I didn't want to try and do that again. So I was just like, "Well, your only reason was that you said you were busy," which doesn't apply to the situation. Maybe you didn't quite understand. So I drew that old lady, um, and it wasn't without her express permission, but I think it was fine. And they never saw my drawing anyways, or noticed that I was drawing them, so it doesn't really matter. But and once I was done with drawing the first old lady, um, we were just about at Aldi's, uh, and the old lady that I was drawing had tugged the string to make the bus stop, and was also getting off at Aldi's. So we both got off the bus together and didn't have any time to socialize with anybody around there. Um, so I was at Aldi's. When I got to Aldi's, uh, I realized that I didn't have a quarter. I checked my wallet for a quarter and was like looking around to see if there are any. If you don't know, at Aldi's the carts, they're like locked so that you have to put a quarter into this like lock mechanism on the cart to unlock it, and then you can take the cart and go shopping. And they just do that to keep the carts orderly and be a cheeky thing of like, our food is so cheap that you won't need this quarter, and you get the quarter back at the end. It's a weird thing. It's mainly just to keep the carts orderly. So I didn't have a quarter. I was looking to see if there were any carts with quarters in them or just like free floating, because sometimes there are. And a person walked up to me and said like, "Hey, are you looking for a quarter?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they gave me a quarter, which was very nice of them. I try not to assume people's gender, but they were very feminine presenting. Um, and I assumed the gender of the old people on the bus before, but this uh, whoops, oh well. Um, anyways, that was the end of that interaction. The person gave me a quarter. It was very nice of them. I was able to get my cart and go shopping. Nothing of note really happened that while I was shopping at Aldi's. On the bus ride back, there was the bus ride back was very packed. There was like a person in every other seat, which is a lot for the bus where we live. It is not a big town. Um, Usually there's only like half a dozen people on the bus at a time, but this time there was like a dozen or maybe even more. Um, and uh, Not many people really socialized. There was a person sitting across from me who I like made eye contact with a couple times, but that didn't really go anywhere. Um, but there were two rowdy white boys in the in the back upper back seat of the bus who were just like talking about all kinds of shit, cussing, talking about like fucking people and stabbing people and things like that, um, very loudly. And there was this person uh, next to me with their young grandson in the seat next to them, and they had like talked to other people like sort of amusedly a couple times about the rowdy white boys, um, but at a certain point they had like had enough and was like, "Hey, my I have a young child here. Can you chill it out with all the cursing and talking about um not child friendly stuff?" And so the rowdy white boys were like, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know there was a kid there. We're sorry. We'll be quiet." And then they continued to talk about their uh they continued to talk about their things, but a lot more quietly, so that the boy could not hear. Um, when uh when they got off, pretty much everybody on that bus got off at the same stop, which was weird. Um, everybody but me and like one other person on the bus was getting off at the same stop. But so it was weird to have just everybody move to the all that bus packed full of people all move to the exit at the same time. But when the rowdy white boys went to get off the bus, the bus drivers stopped them and lectured them a little bit more about hey, don't curse like that on my bus, please. And they were like, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a kid there. If I knew there was a kid, I would have been more quiet. And then they went on their way. And shortly after that, um, I the bus went to the stop near my house. It went a different way than it usually does. That put me at a bus stop that was slightly farther away than I was used to, but it was still like within reasonable walking distance. So I just walked home um, with my groceries. When I got home, put the groceries away. Um, my brother, my roommate, wasn't at home. It was just us. Um, and when we were done putting the groceries away, I like checked things on the computer a little bit more, and then we got our laundry to go to the parents' house. I switched to Austin just because um, they're the one who has the most relationship with the parents. Um, Not gonna talk about what happened at the parents' house just because that's family stuff. But it was a nice time. Uh, we ate dinner, had some apple crisp, which was nice. And on the way back home, um, Rando was fronting and listening to a new episode of the Alan Watts podcast, Being in the Way with Alan Watts, which is a very good just collection of Alan Watts talks that updates like once every like 2 or 3 months or something. It has like a weirdly sparse upload schedule for something that is just like an intro to a pre-recorded talk, um, like an intro and outro. They don't even have like ads in it or anything, but whatever. Um, and the Alan Watts talk. I guess I'll let Rando talk about this, but so yeah, this is Rando. Um, the Alan Watts talk was about how the ego is sort of just an idea. It was about a lot of things, but one of the pretty much the central thing was about how the ego is just an idea that we come up with to um for the purpose of communication largely, just like words are ideas that we come up with for the purpose of communication largely, and the words themselves are not the thing, and in the same way your ego is not you. It is just an idea of what you are, and consequently your ego never does anything. It only describes what happens in a framework of uh, subject and object, person and not person, me versus not me. um, and it is just how like it is in the same way that um words don't do anything, like telling someone come over here. It's not like the words were a magic command that forced them to come over here. The words were just an idea that was used to communicate, or an idea that is put into a communicatable form. So saying the words "come over here" communicated the idea that you want that person to come over here to that person. And in the same way, uh, the words themselves didn't do anything and were a description of what of the thing that happened, or in this case, what the thing that you wanted to happen. um I don't know if that's a great metaphor. Maybe better would be describing or saying like, I guess my confusion is because "come over here" is sort of a future tense description, if that makes sense. It is describing something, a possible future action. um Not exactly, but it is describing a will for possible future action. And I guess that is sort of a good way of describing the ego, because um it can describe possible future action, and it can describe a will for possible future action. But I'm getting a little muddled here. Basically, the ego is uh your idea of yourself is the thing that we call your ego. And your idea of yourself is just that: it is an idea, it is not your actual self. It is useful, it is developed in order to uh, play along with the rules of society, which is a useful, in some ways, um, way of organizing ourselves, a society. And in that way, it is a sort of social survival tool. Like many impulses, or human instincts are social survival tools. And that's all fine, but when you start to think that your ego is you, or has any real influence, like is the one driving the body or the happening or whatever, um has any direct influence, I should say, because being a thing in the universe, the ego does have an influence on the universe. um our current theory is that possibly the only uh actual influence that ego has is the ability to um generate or drum up fear in you, because it is a survival mechanism. and that is pretty much what survival mechanisms do. Is uh that is what some survival mechanisms do. There's also uh like the survival mechanism of like um the fear of heights, for instance, is really just a survival mechanism response of looking at the fact that the body is in a high up place and could fall, and generating fear um to try and uh get the body to move away from that high place and onto a a safer place. There are also survival mechanisms like hunger that has an attractive force that is it generates desire for food so that you eat and don't starve. And maybe ego can generate both fear and desire. Um, I don't think we have examined that very fully, but that seems feasible. Um, so I was listening to that Alan Watts podcast, um, and having a great feeling of release, of lightness, um, sort of the realization that ego is more of a thing that follows action than a thing that creates action, um, was a very liberating feeling. And thankfully, we were in I guess I was in a mental and physical space where I was able to really fully appreciate that notion and really just sit in the moment and enjoy the the arbitrary pattern that the universe was creating in that moment, which was one of the other big things that was touched on in that talk. Just the fact that which Alan Watts touches on a lot, which I think is a good thing to touch on. I really like the point that the universe is just a random, arbitrary, impossible to truly accurately describe, truly deeply, infinitely complex pattern that's just always going on and always changing. And trouble arises when we think that these words or thought forms which we have created to try and describe the world are in any way an accurate description of the world, or God forbid, the world itself. They are a part of the world for sure, and a very valid and useful part of the world. I wouldn't. None of this would be happening if it wasn't for words and ideas, uh, and pictures and things like that. But the world itself is indescribable just simply and fundamentally. Um, any like it's sort of like you can make increasingly accurate maps. Uh, you can make a map that is shaped like the Earth so that it doesn't have the spatial distortions of making it flat. You can make a globe. You can even make taking the idea to the logical extreme. You could even make a globe that is the size of the Earth and just has all of the same features on it exactly. But even if you could create a, a map that is completely one-to-one accurate like that, it still wouldn't be the original thing. So it's not a question of how accurate can words be. It's just the words aren't, they're not the thing. The globe isn't the Earth, no matter how accurate it gets. It's just a it's just a replica or a map. Um, so all those feelings sort of led to a, a drumming up of a feeling within us that we have experienced some of before, but have never followed all the way until this instant. Um, of just fuck it. um, we're going to let go and not uh let the things that scare us stop us from doing the things that we feel we not that we feel we should do, just the things that are happening, just the things that we are doing. um just sort of don't hesitate and see what happens. And this is what happened. uh Rando went inside and brought in the laundry from our parents' house. um Came into this room pretty much immediately. I don't remember. Oh wait, no. We had listened to the first 40 minutes of the Alan Watts podcast on the car ride home and sitting in our car, and then came in here and listened to the last 20 minutes. Um, and after that, well, smoked a tiny bit, lit some incense, and then after that, started playing music. We've been listening to our this is there's a tradition uh, that Austin has been doing for 3 years now, including this year. I think um, where that we have been continuing. Where at the end of the year, we're a little bit late this year, but we just go through all of the songs on our Spotify playlist. Just listen to all of them, remove any ones that we're like meh about, and um, add all of the ones that we really really like to a new playlist and make a sort of top 30 songs for the year. Um, and that's been going on 2 years, three counting this year. Um, and so we started listening to uh, putting on our songs again. There was some. We were in a Regina Spektor era, and then uh, that was just like most of the songs on Soviet Kitsch, and some Jack Stauber. I don't need to get into all the songs that we listened to, but put away the laundry, played a little bit of the we got like a Thunder Sounds tape from a thrift store, um, and also a tape player, and we were playing the thunder noises, um, just because we put away our clothes, um, sculpted one of our tulpas for a bit, um, and then uh, and we were I lose track of who was fronting at this point because we would normally have a sort of system for who fronts when, um, that is like involves like a door and like drawing a shape and things like that. Um, but uh, I think I just said like, fuck it, let's not use the door for tonight at least. See how that goes. And so we've been we had been like switching a lot, and pretty fluidly. Um, and so I lost track of who was fronting when, but um, someone got the thought of, um, maybe I want to work on the music video while uh, while listening to this music, because we have an animated music video that we've been working on, and we hadn't put in any work on it today because we were doing errands, and so that would have been nice to get some work on. But when we turned on the computer monitor, our uh, still doing the, keep in mind we had said fuck it, just let go and see whatever happens mode. Um, and so instead of our mouse going to the uh, to open tunes, it went to video pad, and then it went to the record button, and then it went to setting up the webcam. Um, and so then we were just recording ourselves doing what we were doing before. And that's the part that you saw. And what was sort of going through our heads during that time, um, thinking about, which is something that we think about a lot, is like genuineness, um, being a genuine person, and specifically, um, being a genuine person online, and the commodification of people and of personalities online, and a desire um, to decommodify, not I mean I think yeah, in a way decommodify ourselves. We have always been sort of wary about um, commodifying ourselves in the first place. But I think that even just um, among friends, the act of sort of avoiding certain behaviors because they would be embarrassing or uncomfortable or too intense or too weird or just any like I don't want to be a social outcast. I don't want to lose social capital. I don't want to be seen as someone who people don't want to be around or like or whatever. And like I feel like even those impulses are not fundamentally from a place of commodification, but because of how our just like modern day humans' social lives feed into capitalism, like it is on some level commodification to even just curate your behavior in private among friends. I think that that is not the only place that that feeling can come from. Um, I feel like it also just comes from can just come from general fears of like general social anxiety fears, um, insecurity about being accepted, um, insecurity in general, um, you know, things like that that have nothing to do with commodification or capitalism or social capital, but I think that the only thing that it is like inescapably is social capital is a commodity and it is linked to commodity, so you are getting more of it by or preserving it or whatever by curating your behavior in that way. um, and just a lot of thoughts about how like um, people in general society and especially on social media, um, like especially on social media, are encouraged to present themselves as uh, themselves and or certain aspects of um, their personality as products, as commodities. And this isn't. I've definitely heard this analysis before. It's uh not anything groundbreaking, but just feeling a general distaste for uh the practice of pruning oneself and pruning the way that one appears to others in order to make yourself more appealing, in order to gain social or monetary capital, which is a thing that just runs completely rampant in every corner of internet culture. it's it's funny. Um, when Austin was very yeah, I'll just have Austin speak. When I was very young and just getting into YouTube and the online space, um, I feel like I had just caught the tail end of people calling people sellouts for getting sponsors and things like that. Um, that was like a thing that, in my understanding, in the like early um, internet days, early YouTube days, was like a very widespread thing. Like if you got a sponsor or monetized your video in any like explicit way, people would call you a sellout, um, and just like be nasty about it, basically. And shortly after I became aware of and active on YouTube Spaces, that was like a thing that was rapidly going away. Um, and people were just like, "Yeah, get that sponsorship money," you know, and like having the understanding that people do this as jobs and need the money to live, which is true, but I feel like um, we could maybe use a little bit more of that attitude of hey don't sell out. Like this is now a valid route for um earning a living, but I think that there are ethical and unethical ways to go about doing that on an online platform. And at current, while there are definitely people being critiqued for just like their behavior and like really egregious violations of ethics in terms of monetization, it's still mostly like, yeah, get that bread. Uh, and I think that online communities could use maybe just a little bit more criticism in terms of how people monetize things. Um, I feel like merch is probably one of the most unexamined um, things in that, just because like the textile industry is fucked. It's so horribly exploitative, like all capitalistic industries are, but the textile industry specifically, holy shit. Um, and yet merch is one of the most widely accepted ways. Like everybody makes merch, even the most like lefty whatever nice always it's oh, I just want to love and be kind and capitalism, haha, I hate capitalism, buy my merch, buy my merch, buy my merch, buy my merch, as though it wasn't made by somebody who's getting paid like 60 cents a day in a sweatshop. um and I just like never see anybody really criticizing that. I still haven't exactly answered the question of why I made those videos, but I guess part of that is just because there isn't really a why. I did it because I felt like it. I did it because when I um, felt inspired to live genuinely, that's what happened. And this is what happened. And um, if I try to pathologize what I did with a goal or ideology of some sort, um, which we did try to do um, in the break between uh, in the break between recording the last video and starting to record this. We had a bathroom break, and Alexander was fronting the most time, and like um, not still having a very open attitude to it, but definitely trying to prepare the reason, and also during while we were doing it, trying to prepare the reason as to why we did this, the explanation, what it did for us, what it can do for you. What's the point? Uh, but I think it was just a genuine act, and I think that trying to introduce any reasoning into it would just like put it into a system uh, that doesn't actually hold that kind of thing and bring about problems and contradictions in the logic as to why you did that thing. Why did you do that? What was your reasoning? It, there wasn't there wasn't reasoning. Reasoning wasn't involved in it. So I'm not gonna try and give one. Um, so I guess this video is just a ramble and not an explanation of of why I did that thing. Like I said at the beginning, but I like that better. I think that fits whatever this is. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I should end the video now. It's been very long. I want to give a more satisfying ending, but it's it's oh god, it's 47 minutes long.